The steel gate slammed shut 3 feet from my truck bumper, and the HOA security guard shoved a flashlight straight through my windshield. Rain hammered the metal bars while his radio crackled with static. "Turn around," he barked. "Federal inspectors aren't allowed in this community without HOA approval." Then he grabbed the county flood access badge hanging inside my truck like it meant nothing. That was mistake number 1. The second mistake came when another guard chained the gate completely shut behind me. Because the road they were blocking controlled emergency access to the entire flood spillway system feeding 3 neighborhoods downstream. The smell of wet asphalt and diesel drifted through my cracked window while red warning lights blinked above the gate arm. Somewhere behind those perfect houses, water was already backing up. Tyler Briggs stood under the security awning with one hand resting on his taser like he'd been waiting all night to throw somebody out. His rain jacket stretched tight across his shoulders. Cheap cologne mixed with cigarette smoke every time he leaned into my window. "You deaf or stupid?" he snapped. "Nobody gets past this gate without Brenda's permission." Then I heard it. A low hydraulic hum somewhere beyond the clubhouse. Heavy pumps running. Too many pumps. Too late at night for routine maintenance. Tyler must have seen my eyes shift because he stepped closer and blocked my view. "Stay in the truck." That only made me look harder. Fresh concrete dust coated the curb near the gate pillars. The kind that sticks white against wet pavement. Brand new construction. And buried beneath that concrete sat one of the county's primary flood diversion lines. They had poured directly over protected infrastructure. I killed the engine slowly. Rain ticked across the hood. Nobody spoke for a second. Then headlights cut through the storm. A white Lexus SUV rolled toward the gate like royalty arriving at a parade. Brenda Whitmore stepped out holding a black umbrella. Pearl earrings. Perfect blonde hair. Smile sharp enough to cut steel cable. She looked me over once and sighed like I was a delivery driver ruining her evening. "This is the problem with letting county people wander around private property," she said. "They start thinking they own everything." Tyler smirked beside her. Brenda walked closer and tapped one manicured finger against the edge of my federal access placard. "Remove the vehicle," she told him. "Tonight." The rain kept falling harder. Water streamed along the gutters beside the gate. But it wasn't draining correctly. I could already hear the overflow rattling beneath the storm grates. Wrong direction. Wrong pressure. Somebody had rerouted flow under this entrance. I finally opened my door and stepped out into ankle-deep runoff. Cold water soaked through my boots instantly. "Ma'am," I said calmly, "that gate sits on a protected flood control easement." Brenda laughed softly. Tyler actually grinned. Then she folded her umbrella and pointed toward the road behind me. "You have 60 seconds before I call the sheriff and report trespassing." The funny thing was, the sheriff's office had been the one sending me there all week. "My name's Ethan Cole. Federal Infrastructure Compliance Investigator. Most days I spend more time around drainage maps than people." But standing there in the rain, listening to those pumps strain behind the neighborhood walls, I realized this wasn't some petty HOA power trip anymore. Somebody inside Willow Creek Estates was hiding a much bigger problem. Then the first emergency flood alarm started screaming. The alarm echoed across the neighborhood like a tornado siren trapped underwater. Red strobes flashed along the clubhouse roof. Rainwater surged over the curb beside my boots and rushed downhill toward the lower streets. Tyler spun toward the sound instantly. His confidence cracked for half a second. Brenda noticed it too. "Shut that thing off," she snapped at him. But the alarm kept screaming. Loud. Mechanical. Relentless. I looked past the gate toward the retention lake sitting behind the houses. The water level was too high already. Way too high for a storm this small. Somebody had restricted the outflow. Brenda folded her umbrella tighter against the wind and stepped closer to me. You need to leave, she said through clenched teeth. Now. Her perfume mixed with the sharp smell of wet concrete and overheated machinery drifting from the pump station uphill. I stayed calm. Your pumps are overcompensating, I told her. That means the spillway is blocked somewhere. Tyler scoffed loudly. This neighborhood passed inspection 6 months ago. I looked directly at the fresh gate pillars. Rainwater curled around the concrete bases instead of draining beneath them. Wrong grading angle. Wrong runoff path. Whoever built this entrance ignored every county flood spec in Texas. Another siren started wailing deeper inside the neighborhood. Different tone this time. Short bursts. Emergency pressure warning. Tyler reached for his radio immediately. Static exploded through the speaker. Then a nervous voice cut in. Water is backing into Section C. The lower garages are flooding. Brenda's face hardened. She turned away from me too fast. That told me more than the alarm did. She already knew there was a problem. Headlights began appearing along the street behind the gate. Homeowners stepping onto porches. Garage doors opening. Rain bounced off roofs in silver sheets while the retention lake behind them churned darker by the second. I had seen this exact setup before. Developers cut corners. HOA boards approve rushed construction. Somebody pockets the budget difference. Then the drainage system fails during the first real storm. Except this neighborhood had something worse underneath it. Federal infrastructure lines. Protected county flood channels. Systems tied directly into 3 nearby subdivisions and an elementary school less than 2 miles downhill. If this spillway backed up completely, the overflow would not stop at Willow Creek Estates. Tyler suddenly pointed at me like he found his courage again. This is because of him, he shouted toward Brenda. He touched something when he got here. I almost laughed at the stupidity of it. I had been outside the gate the entire time. But panic makes people stupid fast. Brenda looked at me carefully. Measuring. Calculating. Then she lowered her voice. How much do you know about this property? There it was. Not denial. Not confusion. Fear. Cold rain dripped from my jacket collar while another pressure alarm echoed from uphill. I watched muddy water bubbling through cracks near the base of the entrance road. The soil underneath was shifting. Fresh concrete always tells the truth in heavy rain. Enough to know somebody buried a drainage bypass under this gate, I said quietly. Tyler's expression froze. Brenda did not answer right away. Her jaw tightened around whatever lie she almost said next. Then bright headlights swept across the flooded entrance from the main road below. County vehicles. More than one. Brenda stopped breathing for a second when she saw them turn toward the gate. The county trucks rolled through the rain with amber lights flashing across the flooded pavement. Water slapped against the tires as they stopped outside the gate. Tyler straightened his jacket immediately. Brenda lifted her chin and forced that polished realtor smile back onto her face. But her fingers tightened around the umbrella handle hard enough to turn her knuckles pale. 2 county engineers stepped out first wearing reflective rain gear soaked dark from the storm. I recognized one of them instantly. Ben Ramirez. Flood Control Division. 20 years working drainage systems across Travis County. Ben spotted me standing beside the gate and his entire expression changed. Cole, he shouted over the rain. What the hell is going on here? Before I could answer, Brenda stepped forward smoothly like she was hosting a neighborhood barbecue instead of a flood emergency. This man trespassed onto private property and started making accusations about our infrastructure. Ben looked from her to the standing water around the entrance road. Then he noticed the alarm strobes reflecting off the retention lake uphill. His jaw tightened fast. You blocked the federal access easement, he asked. Brenda hesitated 1 second too long. Tyler jumped in instead. This is HOA-controlled property. Ben actually laughed once. Short. Sharp. No humor in it. Lady, that spillway feeds half the county west side. Rain hammered the hood of my truck while another surge of runoff spilled over the curb behind us. Homeowners were gathering near their garages now. Some filming with phones. Others standing barefoot under covered porches watching the water rise inch by inch along the lower driveways. A little kid pointed toward the lake and tugged his father's sleeve. Even from the gate I could hear the deep grinding sound coming from the pump station uphill. Bearings under strain. Pumps fighting pressure they should never have carried alone. Ben walked straight to the new concrete pillars and ran his flashlight across the base. Water bubbled through hairline cracks in the fresh pour. Mud pushed upward with every pulse. Jesus, he muttered. Who approved this? Brenda crossed her arms tightly. Our contractors handled all county permits. That answer landed badly. Engineers hate vague answers. Especially during storms. Ben crouched lower near the curb and scraped loose concrete with his boot. Then he looked up at me. I already knew what he saw. Cheap aggregate mix. Fast cure pour. Probably rushed in less than 48 hours to finish before inspection. Another county truck door slammed behind us. This one carried sheriff deputies. Not emergency response. Enforcement. Tyler noticed them too. His confidence disappeared a little more. One deputy stepped carefully through the runoff and spoke quietly with Ben near the gate arm. I could not hear every word through the rain, but I caught enough. Back up near Cedar Creek. Pressure sensors offline. Possible illegal bypass. Brenda heard it too. Her eyes darted uphill toward the clubhouse. Then toward the retention lake. Then finally toward me. Calculating again. She lowered her voice when she spoke next. Mr. Cole, she said carefully, maybe we should continue this conversation privately. That told me everything. People only ask for privacy when public answers will destroy them. Lightning flashed across the neighborhood sky bright enough to turn the standing water silver. For half a second I saw the entire slope behind the houses clearly. Fresh dirt near the lake embankment. Construction tarps. Temporary piping. Somebody had been digging recently despite the storm season restrictions. Then the ground beneath the gate vibrated hard enough to rattle the metal chain. The vibration hit again. Stronger this time. The chain wrapped around the gate clinked against the steel posts while muddy water surged through the cracks beneath the entrance road. Tyler stepped backward instinctively. Even Brenda lost her balance for half a second in the runoff. Ben Ramirez stood up immediately and pointed his flashlight toward the retention lake. Shut those pumps down now, he yelled toward the clubhouse. Nobody moved. Rain poured off the rooftops in silver sheets. Somewhere uphill, a transformer buzzed loudly against the storm. Then one of the lower street homeowners shouted from his driveway. My garage is flooding. More porch lights snapped on across the subdivision. Garage doors lifted one after another. Water rolled downhill between parked SUVs and golf carts carrying leaves, mulch, and pieces of fresh concrete with it. The whole neighborhood suddenly looked less like luxury real estate and more like a construction site built too fast. Brenda forced herself back into control mode. Everyone stay calm, she shouted. This is temporary runoff. But nobody sounded calm anymore. I could hear panic spreading through the radios clipped to the security guard standing near the clubhouse path. One voice kept repeating the same sentence. Pressure keeps rising. Ben walked directly toward the gate keypad mounted beside the concrete pillar. He pulled a county access card from his jacket and swiped it once. Red light. Denied. He frowned immediately. They disconnected county override access, he muttered. That made my stomach tighten harder than the alarms did. Removing county emergency override from a flood control access route was not an accident. Somebody made that decision deliberately. Tyler tried to step between Ben and the keypad. You cannot touch HOA property without authorization. Ben stared at him like he had lost his mind. This is emergency infrastructure access. Tyler opened his mouth again, but a deputy cut him off. Son, step away from the gate. The rain eased slightly for the first time all night. That almost made things worse because now everyone could hear the water moving underneath us. Deep. Heavy. Wrong. I crouched near the curb and pressed my palm against the flooded pavement. The vibration pattern had changed. Faster pulses now. Uneven pressure. Something downstream was blocked completely. I followed the runoff with my flashlight and saw muddy whirlpools forming near the edge of the entrance road. Soil erosion under the foundation. Fresh construction never hides stress well during storms. Brenda noticed me watching the ground. What is it? She asked before catching herself. Too late. Her voice finally sounded nervous. Your bypass line is failing, I said calmly. Water is forcing backward under the gate foundation. Tyler scoffed again, but quieter this time. Nobody else laughed. Another homeowner came splashing down the street holding a phone above his head. The lake is spilling over, he shouted. It is hitting the walking trails. Ben swore under his breath and grabbed his radio. I need county emergency crews here now. Brenda suddenly stepped close enough that I could smell rainwater soaking through her expensive perfume. You can help fix this quietly, she whispered. We do not need federal involvement. There it was again. Not concern about flooding. Concern about exposure. The deputy nearest the gate heard her too. His expression changed instantly. He looked from Brenda to the fresh concrete pillars and finally toward me. Federal? He asked carefully. Lightning flashed again across the retention lake. This time the beam caught something half buried near the embankment. Black industrial piping. New piping. Definitely not county approved. Ben saw it too. Then he slowly lowered his flashlight and looked straight at Brenda. Brenda did not answer right away. Rainwater dripped from the edge of her umbrella while Ben's flashlight stayed locked on the black piping near the retention lake. The whole entrance suddenly felt smaller. Tighter. Like the storm itself was listening. Tyler shifted beside the keypad and looked uphill nervously. He finally saw what everyone else saw. This was no longer some HOA argument at a gate. Ben stepped closer to the embankment fence and aimed his light again. That pipe was installed recently, he said. County never approved that diameter. The deputy beside him pulled a small notebook from his jacket immediately. Brenda noticed it and her composure slipped another inch. Our contractors handled everything legally, she snapped. But her voice cracked halfway through the sentence. I walked toward the curb where muddy runoff swirled around broken chunks of concrete. Fresh tire tracks cut through the soaked grass nearby. Heavy equipment. Recent movement. Somebody had worked this site during active flood season restrictions. That alone could trigger county penalties. But the piping made it worse. Much worse. The black line disappeared beneath the new entrance road at an angle no engineer would ever choose unless they were trying to reroute flow fast and cheap. Another deep groan rolled beneath the pavement under our feet. Homeowners farther downhill started shouting again. One woman stood knee-deep in water near her driveway holding a flashlight with shaking hands. It is coming through the drains now, she yelled toward the gate. Ben turned sharply toward Brenda. Where does that bypass line connect? Brenda folded her arms tighter. I am not an engineer. Wrong answer. County people hate that answer during emergencies too. Tyler suddenly spoke before she could continue. The contractors said the original drainage route was slowing down the clubhouse expansion. Silence hit for half a second after that. Even Tyler realized too late what he had admitted. Ben stared at him hard. Clubhouse expansion. Tyler swallowed visibly. Brenda stepped between them instantly. Do not answer anything else. That move alone told the deputies plenty. Rainwater rushed harder beneath the gate chain now. Fast enough to shake loose gravel along the shoulder. I crouched lower and brushed mud away from the edge of the concrete footing with my glove. Then I saw it. A county survey marker snapped clean in half and buried beneath the fresh pour. Somebody intentionally paved over protected infrastructure boundaries. Ben saw my flashlight stop moving. What did you find? He asked. I held up the broken marker silently. The deputy nearest me let out a low whistle. That is county property, he muttered. Brenda closed her eyes briefly. Like she already knew the damage was done. Then the clubhouse lights flickered once. Twice. The pump noise uphill changed pitch immediately. Lower. Rougher. Overworked motors. Homeowners began stepping farther out into the streets despite the rain. Phones glowing everywhere now. Recording. Watching. Whispering. Rumors spread faster than floodwater in neighborhoods like this. Tyler backed away from the keypad slowly. The arrogance was completely gone from his face. He looked pale under the flashing red alarms. Brenda, he said quietly, they told us the reroute was temporary. Temporary. There it was. The word that destroys careers during infrastructure investigations. Temporary fixes become permanent disasters all the time. Especially when money disappears. Ben looked toward me carefully. He already knew what I was thinking. Illegal bypass. Restricted spillway flow. Blocked federal access. Missing county oversight. This was starting to smell a lot bigger than bad construction. Then one of the deputies answered a radio call and his entire posture changed. The deputy lowered his radio slowly and looked straight at Ben. Rain tapped against his hat brim while emergency lights painted the floodwater red and blue around our boots. County records just confirmed missing infrastructure funds tied to this property, he said. Nobody spoke for a second after that. Even the homeowners nearby went quiet. The only sound came from the pumps uphill grinding against pressure they could barely handle anymore. Brenda's face lost color immediately. Tyler stared at her like he had never actually questioned where the construction money came from until now. Ben rubbed rainwater from his forehead and exhaled hard. How much money are we talking? The deputy checked his notebook. Initial estimate says $14 million tied to flood mitigation upgrades over the last 18 months. Several homeowners reacted at once. One older man near the sidewalk actually laughed from disbelief. Flood upgrades, he shouted. They raised our HOA fees twice for landscaping. Brenda snapped toward him instantly. This is not the time for rumors. But the damage had already spread through the crowd. People started talking over each other. Questions. Complaints. Somebody mentioned drainage repairs that never happened. Another homeowner yelled about retention work postponed 3 different times. The whole polished image of Willow Creek Estate started cracking wide open right there in the rain. I watched Brenda carefully while everyone else argued. She never looked shocked about the money. Just trapped. That mattered. Tyler suddenly stepped closer to her. You told us county approved the reroute, he said quietly. Brenda kept her eyes on the growing crowd. Lower your voice. Wrong thing to say around nervous people. Especially during emergencies. Ben pointed toward the buried black pipe near the lake embankment. That bypass line is not temporary drainage. That thing reroutes pressure away from the original spillway. He looked at me next. If they restricted outflow to expand the clubhouse foundation, I finished the sentence for him. Then the retention system has been operating overloaded for months. Another vibration rolled under the entrance road. strong enough this time to shake muddy water loose from the curb joints. Homeowners stepped backward instinctively. One woman grabbed her kid and moved uphill toward the clubhouse parking lot. Smart move. I walked closer to the broken survey marker still half buried beneath the fresh concrete. Rainwater had washed more mud away from the base now. Enough for county serial numbers to show clearly under my flashlight beam. Protected flood control boundary marker. Official county infrastructure. Buried deliberately. Ben saw it too and shook his head slowly. They paved right over the easement line. Tyler looked genuinely confused now. Why would anybody do that? Nobody answered him immediately. Because everybody standing there already understood the answer. Money. Easements limit construction. Spillways limit expansion. Federal flood routes reduce usable property space. But if somebody quietly reroutes water and hides the boundaries, suddenly expensive lakeside real estate becomes available. The clubhouse lights flickered again. This time they stayed dim longer. The pump noise uphill sputtered unevenly before stabilizing again with a painful metallic whine. Overheated motors. Running non-stop. Ben grabbed his radio. Emergency crews need direct access inside now. Brenda stepped in front of the gate keypad immediately. No unauthorized vehicles are entering this community. Every deputy turned toward her at the same time. She realized too late how bad that sounded. Rain dripped from her hair onto her shoulders while the alarms echoed behind her. Then one of the county engineers near the retention lake shouted something that made Ben start running uphill. Ben splashed uphill through the runoff before anyone else could react. Flashlights bounced wildly across the retention lake embankment while county engineers followed close behind him. I moved after them immediately. Water soaked through my jeans with every step. Behind me, deputies finally ordered Tyler away from the keypad. Homeowners crowded along the sidewalks now watching the whole thing unfold under flashing emergency lights. The polished silence of Willow Creek Estates was gone. Replaced by radios, alarms, and rising panic. The closer we got to the lake, the louder the mechanical strain became. Pumps screamed somewhere beneath the clubhouse foundation. Metal grinding against pressure far beyond safe operating limits. Then Ben stopped dead near the edge of the embankment fence. "Oh no," he muttered. I raised my flashlight beside his and finally saw it clearly. The original spillway gate had been sealed shut with fresh industrial brackets. Thick steel plates. New weld marks. Somebody had physically restricted the main outflow channel. Rainwater crashed against the blocked spillway while the retention lake climbed higher by the minute. But that was not the worst part. 50 feet downhill from the sealed gate sat the black bypass pipe feeding directly underneath the new clubhouse expansion. They had rerouted floodwater beneath the development itself. Cheap shortcut. Fast construction. Massive risk. One of the county engineers crouched beside the bypass line and scraped mud away with his glove. "This pipe cannot handle peak storm load," he said. "Not even close." Ben swung his flashlight toward the clubhouse. Water already pooled around the lower patio supports. The ground beneath the decorative stonework looked soft and uneven. Fresh landscaping mulch floated across the walkways like dark soup. Then another deep vibration rolled beneath us. Strong enough to rattle the fence beside the lake. Homeowners downhill started shouting again. Louder now. More desperate. A deputy radioed evacuation prep for the lower streets while Ben pulled out his phone and started recording everything. Every weld. Every bracket. Every exposed section of illegal piping. Brenda finally caught up to us holding her umbrella against the wind. But the polished HOA president image was completely gone now. Mascara streaked beneath her eyes. Wet hair clinging to her cheeks. "You cannot film private infrastructure," she snapped at Ben. He looked at her like she was insane. "Private," he barked. You sealed a federally connected flood spillway. Tyler stopped several feet behind her. He looked sick now. Rainwater dripped from the edge of his security jacket while he stared at the welded steel plates blocking the original drainage route. You told us county approved the modifications, he whispered. Brenda ignored him completely. That silence told everyone enough. I stepped closer to the spillway wall and ran my flashlight across the weld seams. Sloppy work. Fast work. Rust already forming near the joints despite the recent install. Whoever did this was never planning for long-term pressure loads. They only needed the water redirected long enough to finish construction. Then they probably planned to bury the entire bypass system permanently under landscaping and concrete. Ben finished recording and looked directly at me. This whole development should have been shut down months ago. Before I could answer, a loud cracking sound echoed beneath the clubhouse patio. Sharp. Deep. Structural. Every flashlight snapped toward the same spot instantly. Water burst upward through the decorative stone path near the patio supports like a fire hydrant breaking through concrete. Homeowners screamed downhill. Deputies started moving people back immediately. Brenda stood frozen beside the lake staring at the flooding patio like she was watching her entire life collapse in real time. Then the emergency power at the clubhouse failed. Darkness swallowed the clubhouse in one hard blink. The decorative lights around the patio died instantly. Then the pumps stopped. Total silence hit for half a second before the sound of rushing water came roaring back twice as loud. Homeowners started yelling across the flooded streets. Flashlights bounced wildly through the rain while deputies pushed people uphill away from the lower garages. The retention lake surged against the blocked spillway wall like it had been waiting all night for the system to fail. Ben grabbed my shoulder and pointed toward the clubhouse foundation. The bypass lost pressure, he shouted. Water blasted upward through cracks in the stone path again. Stronger this time. Muddy runoff spread across the patio in fast-moving sheets carrying mulch, gravel, and broken landscaping lights with it. Tyler stood frozen beside the fence staring at the flooding clubhouse like he could not process what he was seeing. We were told the reroute would reduce erosion, he said quietly. Nobody answered him. There was nothing left to say. The storm had already exposed everything. Brenda stepped backward slowly from the embankment. Her expensive shoes sank into the soaked grass while county engineers rushed past her carrying emergency flood barriers from their trucks. One deputy moved beside her immediately. Not aggressive. Just close enough that she understood she was no longer free to leave. Ben shouted orders over the alarms while emergency crews began cutting through the temporary fencing near the original spillway channel. Sparks hissed in the rain where portable saws hit the welded steel plates blocking the outflow gate. Every second mattered now. The retention lake had climbed nearly to the emergency overflow line. If the backup pressure spread farther downhill, nearby county roads would flood next. I moved lower along the embankment searching for the secondary pressure valve tied into the original county design. Mud sucked at my boots with every step. Then my flashlight caught something half buried beneath the runoff. Near the clubhouse support wall. A metal access hatch. County stamped. Hidden under fresh decorative stonework. I brushed mud away fast enough to expose the locking plate underneath. Ben saw it immediately. That is the emergency release junction, he shouted. Which meant the developers had built landscaping directly over protected flood access controls. Another county violation. Another buried system. Another shortcut hidden beneath expensive stone and fake luxury branding. Deputies started pulling homeowners farther back as the patio foundation groaned again. This time pieces of decorative brick cracked loose and slid into the standing water below. Phones recorded everything now. The entire neighborhood watched the truth surface in real time beneath the rain and emergency lights. Tyler finally looked at Brenda directly. How long did you know? He asked. Brenda did not answer him. Her eyes stayed locked on the county crews cutting through the welded spillway plates uphill. The first steel bracket finally snapped free with a loud metallic crack. Water exploded through the reopened channel seconds later. Fast. Violent. Relentless. The sound echoed across the entire subdivision like a freight train tearing through concrete. Floodwater rushed back into the original spillway route where it should have been all along. Homeowners actually cheered from the sidewalks when the water level near the lower garages finally started dropping inch by inch. Ben exhaled hard beside me while rain poured from the brim of his helmet. "That probably just saved half this neighborhood," he muttered. But the night was far from over. One of the deputies near the county truck suddenly waved toward us holding a soaked stack of printed invoices pulled from a waterproof evidence bag. Rain dripped from the evidence bag while the deputy spread the invoices across the hood of a county truck. Flashing emergency lights reflected off soaked paperwork and muddy fingerprints. Ben grabbed the top sheet first. His eyes narrowed immediately. "These contractor numbers are fake," he said. The invoices listed millions spent on flood mitigation upgrades that never existed. Retention wall repairs. Emergency drainage reinforcement. Spillway modernization. None of it matched county records. One company had a mailing address tied to an empty storage unit outside Austin. Another did not legally exist anymore. Homeowners crowded closer despite the rain. Phones hovered everywhere now recording every second. Brenda stood near the flooded clubhouse patio without speaking. Water still rushed through the reopened spillway behind her in a violent roar. But now it sounded different. Controlled. Stable. The system was finally draining the way county engineers designed it decades ago. Tyler stared at the invoices over the deputy's shoulder. "She said the fees were for landscaping upgrades," he muttered. A homeowner near the sidewalk snapped back immediately. "She raised dues 3 times. Another voice joined in. Then another. Complaints spread through the crowd like sparks catching dry brush. Missing repairs. Delayed drainage work. Threat letters from the HOA board. Special assessments nobody understood. The perfect suburban image Willow Creek Estates sold for years collapsed right there in the stormwater. Ben handed me one soaked invoice with a grim look. "Look at the authorization signature." I wiped rainwater from the page and felt my jaw tighten instantly. Brenda Whitmore approved every payment personally. Not the county. Not engineers. Not oversight committees. Her name sat on every line connected to the illegal bypass construction. The deputy beside us exhaled slowly. "That makes this very federal now." Brenda finally spoke again. Her voice sounded thin under the rain. "You do not understand how expensive this expansion became." Nobody answered. Because that sentence told us everything. The clubhouse project ran over budget. Easement restrictions blocked development. So somebody rerouted the flood system instead of redesigning construction legally. Cheaper. Faster. Hidden beneath concrete and decorative landscaping until the storm exposed all of it. Tyler looked physically sick now. "You told us county inspectors approved the gate construction." Brenda shook her head once. "They were slowing everything down." That was the moment the homeowners truly turned on. Her. You could feel it happen. The silence changed first. Cold. Sharp. Done with excuses. A woman standing beside a flooded driveway stepped forward holding her phone chest high. "My husband nearly bought the house below the spillway because you said the drainage system was upgraded." Others started talking over each other again. Angrier this time. Deputies moved Brenda gently toward the county vehicles while emergency crews continued stabilizing the spillway behind us. Nobody cheered. Nobody yelled. The rain had drained all the energy out of the neighborhood hours ago. What remained was exhaustion and realization. I stood near the reopened flood channel watching muddy water surge through the original spillway route under flashing work lights. The same route county engineers designed long before Willow Creek Estates existed. Long before decorative gates and fake authority covered everything in polished stone and HOA letters. Ben stepped beside me quietly. "Funny thing," he said, staring at the rushing water. "That gate they built to control access almost destroyed the whole subdivision." I watched emergency crews cut the last chain loose from the flooded entrance road while dawn slowly brightened the clouds over the lake. Then county workers raised a temporary red sign beside the broken gate. Federal flood access. Do not obstruct.